Hey everybody, this is the part two to the CMA video, where in this video we're going to be going over, if you do like a search or a CMA for a property using like the radius feature, or if you're searching without the initial subject property being there for the search process, and how to add that subject property later on in the video. So in this video, we're going to start out with going to our searches, and we're just going to assume that we are creating a listing presentation or a CMA for a client that's interested in potentially listing their home. So one of the tools I like to use is I can either do a quick search for a specific area, but more than most likely, I'm going to want a radius search for the most part, because I want properties that are going to be very close by to the property itself. That's going to be my subject property. So I'm just going to do a listing that I have sold now, and just work back from there. So I'll just do a property that I had in Edison. So you guys should already know how to input the street number and street name, Edison, and it's already going to set the search for a quarter mile. And if we look down here, we notice that it's only pulling properties that are active. So again, I'm going to want to look at closed properties. And when you hit closed in Rappattoni, just like the previous MLS, it automatically goes back 180 days or 6 months. You can see that. So now we have 6 listings that we have found, and I'm not doing a real one, so I'm not going to bother going through all this information, all this criteria, going through the additional criteria to make sure that these listings are exactly identical to mine or close enough to compare to mine, because I'm just not interested in that right now. But if you were to do that and you wanted to whittle it down to maybe just 2 or 3, you could do that. But when you are ready to move forward, you want to hit the search button. Now, if you've watched the previous video, you notice the big difference here is it's just pulling the properties that you're looking for. It doesn't have my property address that I initially put in, which was 23 Gold Street, up at the top as my subject property. That's going to be input later on. So I want to choose the ones that I think are going to be good comps, and I can always go through. And I know, like, my property was, technically a 4-bedroom, so I'm definitely going to choose the one that was a 4-bedroom, one of the higher price point 3-bedrooms, and maybe just this one too. Again, I'm not going through to actually how to comp and do a CMA for your property. I'm just showing you guys an example. So when you do have the property selected, again, you have to have those properties selected first before you click the CMA tab on the toolbar. So when you are ready to go forward, you can go ahead and click CMA. And we went in this with the last video of what these comparisons look like, but right now we're going to be doing the full CMA package that I'm sure you guys are more interested in than the other 2 options. If you do have questions about the 3-up comparison report in CMA 2, that's in the video that is CMA number 1. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click go at the top. Excuse me. And now this is, again, like if I had a new client that wasn't already in my system, I could press create new. Kind of went over this in the last video, but again, here is the input options for your client that you can add: their email address, their name and whatnot, like just what type of client they are, the notes that you might have for them. I'm just going to send this to myself. So I'm just going to collect or submit existing client. Then it has these 3 options: overwrites, contacts, existing CMA package. Again, I went over this in the last video. If you've done a CMA for this client previously, that's still going to be attached to their profile. It usually only holds 1. I think it only holds 1. But if you want to ever find a CMA that you've done for a client in the past that you have sent them, you can go to contacts and prospects, and attach to their name or their contact profile, they're going to have the option for, the reports that you've sent them in the past, including the CMA, that you can click on and find the report that you initially sent them. So we can add listings to existing CMA package. Like if you've already created a CMA for them and you just want to go ahead and like add some more that you might have found later on, you can go ahead and add listings. You can discard the selected listings and view or modify your existing CMA. So this is another spot where you can just quickly go to the CMA for that contact, or you can just go ahead and overwrite, which we're going to do for this one. Okay, so again, not sure if you watched the other video or not. We'll still go through this just so you guys know how to do it. But this is the field section. To the right is the default and selected fields that you have for the property. I know for this particular property, like I could select a bunch of things like basement, the attic is finished, you know, the dining room, the den dimensions and whatnot. Like I could really go into this and do that for this particular listing, but I'm not, because it's not what we're going over. We're not doing an actual CMA for a property. But definitely, like if any of these pertain to yours and it's going to help with your CMA, you definitely want to, you know, click the ones and they will appear on the right-hand side as the selected ones that will be used later on during the CMA. And if any of the selected ones do not pertain to your property or CMA that you want to do, you can always hit the X button and it will remove them. And then again, as we said in the previous video, if you want these selected categories to appear like by default, if you know that you're going to be using these categories or selected categories most often, you can always click save as default, and then you don't have to go ahead and add these later on. So really depends on your market and the listings or the buy sides that you normally end up getting, but you can have it customized to you so you don't have to keep going back. So once you have all the fields selected, you can go to subject property. And the biggest difference between this video and the last one is that the subject property is not yet input in the system. And we're just assuming that this is a new listing that you didn't have access to before. It's not on the MLS. You're just going to be putting it up, so the MLS sheet might not be in there. If you were to be doing a CMA for a property that you're either putting in an offer, like definitely watch the other video so that you can learn how to do it that way. Or if you're putting in an offer for your client and you want to add the listing, you could go ahead and load listing if it is listed in the MLS. Or if this is a listing appointment and the property expired or was listed by another agent and you want to just pull the MLS sheet from what they have so that you can do another valuation for their property, you can go ahead and just load listing. You put the listing number in here, and as soon as you hit get info, it will pull all the information that is on the MLS so that you don't have to manually input it. But let's say you have a client that that bought their home maybe 20 years ago and you don't have a relevant MLS sheet for them, or it's just not in the system. You can always enter new. And this is where you would put the street address for the property, all the you know, address information. So let's just go ahead and do that. Say 23 Gold Street. You have it for Edison. And then once you do have the address in there, you can put validate address, and it'll save the address for you. And then these are the features that we had selected on the previous page as well. Again, there's not many selections here, but that's because we didn't add any. But if you do put, you know, bathrooms for display, three bedrooms, days on the market, you might put 0 if it isn't listed on the market. Listing date, listing price, if that is not relevant to this particular listing or this particular listing that will be put up, then don't add it. You can add price per square feet, sell date. Again, you would want to definitely go back to the field section to make sure that you have all the fields that are relevant to the property. But assuming that you do, then you could go ahead and move on to the next one. And again, if you do realize that there is a listing sheet and you end up on this page, you can always hit get listing data and you can input the listing number in and it'll pull from that as well. Adjustments, or if there's an old listing for the property and the MLS still has it, even if it's like 5 or 10 years old, you can still import that listing data and then make adjustments based off of that, or you can just make adjustments in that subject property field itself, just so that when you go to the next page, which is adjustments, you don't have to you know, make a bunch of monetary adjustments on the right. So again, these properties at the top, these are the different comps that we decided to pull, and it has the highlighted one is the one that you start with. So our subject property, we don't have too much information because I didn't fill it out. But again, this is where you would go through, you know, see 3 bathrooms, and this is 3 with 2.5. So we can just say maybe that's a $5,000 difference for this property. Again, I don't really know. I'm kind of making up numbers, but you can see at the bottom that it does do an adjustment for the property that we are potentially going to list. Let's say that was it for this one. You can then select the next one, make adjustments based off of that. This is just 2. So let's just assume that that's a $10,000 difference. So yeah, you just go through this list. You can see that there's like an adjusted price for all of these. And then when you're ready, and then you've gone through everything, then you can keep going on to analysis. If you say you want to have a specific range that you want up to appear on the report, like a suggested list price, maybe if I wanted my client to list between 370 and 380, I could just put that between 370 and 380,000. And then this number is going to appear on one of the pages in the report, which if you watch the last video, you know where it ends up being put. But if you didn't watch that last one, I'll go over it with this one as well. So this is the analysis page. If there is another comparable listing that you want to add that you've already created the report this far and you think of, and you have the listing number, then you can add comparable listing, input it this way, and then it will appear on the report for you to be able to add in addition. Okay, so now we're going to assume that we have everything, that we're ready to assemble the package. As I mentioned in the previous video, you are able to rearrange the pages by dragging and dropping them to different spots depending on what you want. You could add documents that you might have for this, like whether you have additional marketing material that you want added, whether you have your own page or cover page that you want to have added to this. You could go ahead and click add documents, and you can choose the file right here that will appear on your computer. And then that will appear on this page. You can add reports if you have reports generated within this program. And then you can save as default if you add reports that are going to be standards. If you have a testimonial page that you want added to this as well, that you had our marketing department create, or if you had already previously, maybe you would want to add a testimonial page to this as well. I don't know how everybody else runs their CMAs, but that might be a good idea. So once you have everything, if you want to save it as default, you can go ahead and save it as default. If you want to rearrange these pages, go for it. If you want to preview any of these things, this is the listing presentation cover page. Maybe I want to check that out first. Let's wait for it to load before you go to the next page. Great. So we don't have a picture for the property. No picture is going to put it up, but if you went to the property previously and had pictures of the outside, or if there's pictures online, you can always add those pictures to the cover page. And right here where it said suggested sale price, that's where we had initially input that. And I'll show you guys in 1 second. In the analysis under suggested price range between 370 and 380, now that we know we're in assemble package and we previewed the listing cover page, this is where the suggested sale price ends up being. Maybe you wouldn't want this page as the first one. Maybe you want to tell them your suggested sales price after you go through the report with them. It's completely up to you how you want to have it set up. But this is just a brief overview. If anybody has any questions about how to add anything or how to customize this document, again, feel free to reach out. This is just like a quick video to just show how you get this far in the process. But furthermore, to be able to get to the next step to send this over to your client, you can either click the top on the toolbar. You have 2 options for email and print preview, and also you have the print button all the way to the right. So if you want to check out what it would look like to be ready to preview, and it says missing seller's net sheet. So we didn't actually have this filled out. You can go through and fill out the seller's net sheet or create one right here. But since we don't have one actually created, it just prompted us to tell us that we had a page that didn't have information on it. So I'm just going to remove it just so that we can move on. So if I want to print it out, I could hit print preview. Give me 1 second. It will appear on this page. Sometimes it doesn't transfer over when it's still loading, so we'll just give it a second. Okay, so then it has 2 options, one to open as a PDF so that you can then save the file as a PDF, and one to print it out. But these are all the pages that we've come up with. This is what it looks like. These are what all the stats page and the map reports look like, stuff that you're typically going to see in a CMA report. So you have those options to be able to print it out or save it as a PDF. And up here on the left-hand side of the toolbar, we have the email button. We'll wait for that to load. And again, this is just what you're used to seeing. I have myself as the client, so it automatically has my email address. If you wanted to add any other emails to it or CC anybody, you can definitely do so. It shows who it's from, the subject of what the email is going to be, and then the message that you can end up sending them along with the report. And then when you are ready to send it, you could go up to the top and you have the send email button. Once you click that, it will then forward over to your client. If you want to check out the preview of the CMA package prior to sending it, you click right here. So that's again how you create a CMA using maybe more geared towards a seller or to like a home that you're using that you found using the Radius feature. But again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out.